Instead of spending more time doing drills, getting more reps, throwing and hitting balls more, just like the greatest players have done and still do, these guys chose to choose the part of trickery instead. From cork bats by the legendary Sammy Sosa to the first ever big gambling scandal in baseball history, to foreign substances in pitchers' gloves to even more ridiculous cheating practices, here are MLB stars getting caught cheating at our beloved game. We're better to kick this one off than way back when the first biggest baseball scandal was documented. It was in 1877, which is 145 years ago, if our calculator serves us well. And the culprits? Well, 4 players, all playing for the Louisville Grays. Their names were Bill Craver, Al Nichols, Jim Devlin, and George Hall. You probably have never heard of these guys, but back then, they made a huge mess. A mess so big the Louisville Grays team went out of business due to the scandal. So what happened? Well, these 4 guys were caught in a match-fixing scandal. They bet against their own team and went into the field with their minds already set to throw the game. It all began when a New York gambler, McLeod, had approached Devlin and they had both agreed to throw their games. First one they did was an exhibition game in Cincinnati, and after losing, Devlin was handed the sum of $100 by McLeod, which he then split with his cohorts. Watching the play of the Grays, sports writer John Haldeman became suspicious, but so did the president of the Grays, Charles Chase. Investigation kicked off, and the 4 of them were soon expelled from the club. This incident not only ruined the Grays franchise, but also put baseball in a bad light. But as if the light wasn't already bad enough, 8 players decided in 1919 to cause the league even more moral decay. Even though there is no justification for cheating, this particular scandal started as almost like a protest to the Red Sox players not getting paid enough by their owner, Charles Kaminsky, even after they had won the World Series just 2 years back. So in supposed retaliation of all the tension going on within the team, these 8 players, led by Arnold Chick Gandil, decided, after being promised money from a gambling syndicate headed by Arnold Rothstein, to throw the 1919 World Series game against the Cincinnati Reds. Other players involved in the scandal were Eddie Seacoat, Oscar, Fred McMullen, Charles Risberg, George Buck, Claude Williams, and star player Shoeless Joe Jackson, who actually pleaded innocence. However, they were all banned from baseball for life. This also led to the dissolution of the National Baseball Commission and the institution of the very first National Baseball Commissioner, Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis. But when players are not interested in going on as far as fixing games, they may sometimes choose to become doctors in the field. Except they don't wear lab coats or hand gloves. Instead, they want to count the pitching gloves, of course. This type of cheating is one of the commonest carried out by baseball players, in which they use a foreign substance to rub on the baseball. It's usually a violation of the baseball rule to rub anything foreign on the ball, which is punishable by an ejection and a 10-game suspension. The most common type of doctoring in baseball is called a spitball, and regardless of the rule, MLB players still indulge in the act constantly. The way it sounds is exactly the way it's done. Players usually spit on the ball. It is disgusting, yes, but tell that to all the numbers they tend to rack up after applying the spit. And it's not just spit alone. There are other substances like petroleum jelly, sweat, and fishing line oil that can also be used. Players hide these substances in different creative ways, like behind their head, inside their belt, in their gloves, wrists, and just about anywhere else. Why do they do this, you may ask? Well, they do it because the substance, when applied, usually changes the wind resistance and weight on one side of the ball, which enables it to move a way that favors the pitcher when the ball is pitched. The legendary Ed Walsh was the star player that popularized this technique in the 20th century. He was a dominant pitcher between 1906 and 1912. This was mostly because of his spitball. He laid the foundation for other players in the league, but this act at the time wasn't illegal in baseball and only got a partial ban in 1919. However, today it is completely illegal in baseball. Gaylord Perry, who was a 5-time All-Star, was one of the most famous users of the spitball and was never bashful about his sins. In fact, he wore it proudly and had once commented on the various creative ways he used to cheat, saying, "Man, I tried everything. When my wife was having babies, the doctor would send over all kinds of stuff, and I'd try that too. Once I even used fishing line oil. But that's not all. Perry also wrote an autobiography titled Me and the Spitter, where he talked about how he doctored baseball and then swore he would repent. But he didn't. He instead looked for a trickier way to doctor baseball, as in the next 9 seasons following his book, he threw grease balls and puffballs. But what makes Gaylord Perry's case exceptional was that he was pretty good at his illegal craft, was only ejected for throwing a doctored ball 20 years into his crime. But pitchers are not the only criminals in the league. They're not the only ones employing the use of foreign substances. Hitters also get in the field by using grip enhancers, which is not necessarily illegal to use in Major League Baseball, but the legal use of foreign substances to increase the grip of the bat puts an 18-inch rule, which only allows batters to apply a substance such as pine tar on the grip and or the bat's lowest 18 inches. Of course, some players will still go beyond this 18 inches to as far as the barrel end of the bat just to give them an added advantage. The most famous incident of a player breaking the 18-inch rule has to be George Brett's case in 1983, which is known as the Pine Tar Game, which occurred in the match between the New York Yankees and the Kansas City Royals. This game was very significant because of a lot of things. Number one thing is how controversial the game was. Here are the facts. The Royals were behind 4-3 during the 9th inning when future Hall of Famer George Brett hit a home run to put his team ahead. However, the coach of the Yankees requested that the bat be inspected for pine tar, and when the umpires did, they canceled Brett's hit, called him out, and the Yankees won. Brett was furious. He looked like he wanted the blood of the umpires. It also looked like something that should have ended there, but it didn't. Royals protested the call, and wait for it, they got the chance to continue the game 25 days later, right from when Brett hit the home run, and this time around, the Royals won. The bat used by Brett currently sits on display in the Baseball Hall of Fame after being donated by George Brett. The pine tar might not be illegal when used on bats by pitchers, so long as it doesn't break the 18-inch rule. But using a lighter substance like cork to fill inside a bat is totally illegal. A corked bat generally gives the hitter an edge when hitting by giving him a quicker swing, improving the timing of the hit. The most famous case happened with Sammy Sosa on June 3, 2003 during the game between the Chicago Cubs and the Tampa Bay Rays. In the game, Sosa had hit a ball from pitcher Jeremiah Gonzalez, and his bat had broken. Umpire investigated, and it was discovered that the bat had been filled with cork. Sosa was ejected and subsequently got an 8-game suspension for his crimes. Another very famous one happened with Chris Sabo. Okay, enough with corked bats, foreign substances, and cheating players. How about a whole team doing the cheating themselves? Yep, this happens too. One of such cheating scandals happened between 2013 and 2014. During this time, the St. Louis Cardinals tried to take advantage over the Houston Astros by hacking into their database. The FBI investigated. They discovered that it was the scouting director of the Cardinals, Chris Correa, who had gained access into the accounts of Houston's general manager and other Astros employees like Jeff Lunau. 3 years after investigation in 2017, the Cardinals were fined $2 million and lost their top 2 draft picks. Correa, who had committed corporate espionage, was sentenced to 46 months in prison and banned from baseball for life. But you see, the Astros team that the Cardinals wanted to cheat on, yeah, well, they're not entirely innocent either. To wrap this one up, we go back in 2017 during the World Series tournament, and our criminal this time around, well, it's the Astros. They had won the World Series back in 2017, but there were rumors that the Astros had cheated their way to victory. These rumors did hold water as 2 years later, in 2019, Mike Flyers, who was once a player for the Astros, blew the whistle on his former team. Investigation was later organized, and it was discovered that the Astros were using video cameras to steal signs and relay pitches to the batter at the plate. Team, as a repercussion, was fined a $5 million and lost draft picks in 2020 and 2021. If you enjoyed this video about MLB stars getting caught cheating, check out the video on the screen now, or the one we posted below, because we're sure you'll like that one too. See you there.